Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're getting into a batch of creepy family horror stories. The kind where the scary part isn't some stranger in the woods or something hiding in the dark. It's someone people already know, someone they feel responsible for, someone they keep making excuses for until the situation is way past normal. These stories all have that uncomfortable feeling of being trapped between common sense and family guilt. They get tense, they get sad, they get frustrating, and yeah, a few moments in here are genuinely hard to shake. So get comfortable, turn the lights down if you're into that, and if you enjoy these longer Reddit-style horror videos, please like the video and subscribe. It really does help the channel. And with all that said, let's start with a Thanksgiving visit that goes wrong almost immediately. I came home for Thanksgiving break, expecting the usual few days at my parents' place. My old room, real food, free laundry, normal kitchen talk. Then I pulled into the driveway and saw the camper behind the shed. It was an old beige pull behind, sitting crooked behind Dad's tool shed, with an orange cord running from the back porch, across the wet grass, and under the camper door. My parents were not camper people, so it looked wrong right away. Mom came out through the mudroom door and started talking about traffic and classes, everything except the camper. When I asked, she said, "Your Uncle Ray is staying out there for a little while." Ray was her younger brother. I hadn't seen him in maybe 2 years. Mom said he'd lost his place and was waiting on a check. Temporary, supposedly. I saw him around dark when he came out from behind it while Dad took trash to the can. Ray was thinner than I remembered, wearing a canvas jacket, smoking with one hand cupped around the cigarette. He looked at Dad, then at me, through the kitchen window. I waved because I didn't know what else to do. He didn't wave back. He dropped the cigarette in the grass and went inside the camper. At dinner, I asked how long he'd been there. Mom said, "Not long," right as Dad said, "Couple weeks." Then Mom got up to check the rolls. That was when I got irritated, not scared. I was home for 1 hour and already being treated like the kid who should just drop it. The next morning, little things started sticking. My parents had an old lab mix named Bailey. I took her out while Mom was making pies. Bailey crossed the yard until we got to the narrow strip between the shed and the laundry room wall. Then she stopped, sniffed, backed up, and refused to go farther. I told myself old dogs get weird, and walked her around the other way. When we came back through the mudroom, I noticed muddy boot prints on the mat. Dad said they were his from taking out the trash, then folded the mat over with his foot. The laundry room was cold, like always. A towel was shoved along the sill of the little window above the utility sink. The latch was crooked. I touched it, and the pane shifted. Dad showed up holding a screwdriver and said he'd fix it before the first freeze. I told him he'd been saying that for years. He gave me the look that meant he was done answering. That evening, the porch light over the back door flickered and went out. I was rinsing plates at the sink when I saw Ray moving along the laundry room wall, slow and careful, not toward the shed. I asked if Ray was supposed to be over there. Mom didn't even look out. "Don't start with him tonight." She sounded tired, like she had said it before. "He's wound up right now," she said. "Just leave it alone." Dad reached past me and closed the curtain. Thanksgiving morning almost felt normal. Coffee, pies cooling, turkey smell everywhere. Then the mail came. There was junk. A grocery flyer and a white envelope from Disability with Ray's name on it. It sat on the kitchen table beside the salt shaker while Mom chopped celery. Nobody touched it. Mom asked if Dad was giving it to him that day. Dad said, "I'm not handing him cash again." Last time it was gone by supper. and he came back asking for more. Then the back door opened. Ray stood in the doorway, with cold air moving around him into the mudroom. His jacket was damp from the mist. "What check?" he said. Nobody answered. His eyes went to the envelope. "That's mine." Dad said they were going to talk about it after dinner. Ray laughed once. "After dinner? Sure. You keep me out there like a dog and then decide when I get my own money." Mom said his name softly. He pointed toward the camper. "You got me plugged into the side of the house like a freezer. But I'm the problem. Family always takes its cut, right?" Dad moved between him and the table and said they weren't doing this in front of me. That meant me. I hated it. Mom kept saying they would handle it in the morning. Dad kept his voice low. Ray muttered about the check and about everyone deciding what he was allowed to have. Then he backed onto the porch and let the door swing shut. Later, after Mom went upstairs, I asked Dad how bad it actually was. That was when he admitted Ray had come into the mudroom a couple of times already without asking. I said, "So he broke in?" Dad looked tired and angry, but not only at Ray. He said it wasn't really breaking in, because Ray just didn't understand boundaries when he got mad. I woke up later, thinking something had fallen downstairs. I lay there for a second, because old houses make noises. Then I heard Ray outside the back door. By the time I got downstairs, Dad was in the mudroom with both hands against the door, shoulder pressed into the wood, socks slipping on the mat. Ray was on the porch, yanking the handle hard enough to make the door jump. "Ray, stop," Dad kept saying. "Walk back out there and sleep it off." Dad was still using that disappointed dad voice, like this was me leaving the garage open, not a grown man trying to force his way into the house. Mom was in the kitchen with the phone in her hand, not calling yet. "Call 911, I said. She looked at Dad, then at the door. "Don't make me do this, Ray." Ray hit the door again. The top hinge made a small cracking sound, bad enough that Dad flinched. Mom called. She was crying before the dispatcher picked up, but she still gave the address clearly. Then Ray stopped. The handle went still. His yelling cut off all at once. For a few seconds, it was just Mom breathing into the phone and Dad holding the door. "He went back," Dad said. Nobody moved. Then we heard the laundry room window crack. Not shatter. Crack. Old painted wood giving way. Dad turned his head and said, "No." Ray was not sneaking. We heard him stumble in the side yard, curse, knock something metal against the siding, then tear at the old screen above the utility sink. The towel fell from the sill first. Then a hand came through holding a pray bar. It slapped around against the inside wall, blind and clumsy. For one stupid second, I just stared at it. Then his shoulder shoved through, wet jacket scraping the frame, and one boot came in sideways. There was a narrow inside door between the laundry room and the mud room. Dad tried to slam it shut, but Ray's boot stopped it. Dad slipped almost right away. Mud had dragged in across the tile and his heel went out from under him. I grabbed the door and pulled, while he got one knee under himself. Mom was behind us, still on the phone, shouting the address again. Her voice was high and thin. I had never heard her sound like that. Ray shoved from the other side, half in and half out of the window, breathing hard and saying, my money, over and over. The pry bar came through the gap and hit the door frame. Then it hit the washing machine with a metal bang. That made Bailey bark from the living room. The next swing came lower and missed my fingers by maybe 2 inches. I let go for half a second. I couldn't help it. Dad yelled my name and I got back on the door. Ray didn't sound like somebody with a plan. He sounded angry and scared and stuck. The house was right there. His family was right there. The check was in the kitchen. So he kept trying to come in. The deputies got there before he made it through. Blue light hit the kitchen window. Men shouted Ray's name. One deputy came through the back and another went around the side yard. EMTs showed up after. They got Ray out of the window and down onto the wet grass, still yelling about money. After they left, Dad found a piece of plywood in the shed and started covering the laundry room window. I held the flashlight because he told me to. Even then, he could still make me useful with one sentence. The board was old, gray paint on one side, with old nail holes near the corners. One of them was close enough to a mark in the trim that Dad didn't have to measure. Mom stood in the mudroom doorway. She saw me looking at it. She didn't look at my face when she said he promised he wouldn't go near the windows again. Then she stopped talking. I left before breakfast with the laundry room window boarded over, the camper empty behind the shed, and my parents still refusing to call it a break-in. Yeah, that one is just infuriating in such a real way. Because the scariest part isn't even just Ray forcing his way into the house, it's everyone around it trying so hard not to say what it obviously is. Like, your grown uncle is ripping through a laundry room window with a pry bar, and the family is still treating it like some awkward disagreement that got out of hand. That detail at the end with the old plywood already fitting the window is just nasty. It tells you this wasn't some one-time blow-up. This was a pattern they kept managing instead of stopping. And that makes the whole thing feel so much heavier. We didn't take Aunt Carol in because anyone had some sweet family plan. She fell in her kitchen, spent a few days in the hospital, and then couldn't go home alone. The facility had a wait list. Home care was too expensive. So the answer became our house. My mom kept saying it would be a couple weeks, like saying it enough would make it less insane. My dad mostly stayed quiet, which meant he knew it was bad. I was living back in my old bedroom then. My lease had gone sideways, and I was saving money. So I was technically an adult, but in my parents' house, that still meant I got overruled like I was 15. My room was the same. Bed against the wall, nightstand, charger plugged into the outlet behind it, cheap door handle that latched but didn't lock. It had never mattered before. The house got weird in boring ways first. Pillows on the kitchen counter, a nightlight in the hall, rugs rolled up. My dad moved the knives and scissors. My mom kept telling me not to get irritated if Carol wandered into the wrong room. At first, that was fair. She seemed lost. She'd ask where the bathroom was, when it was 5 steps away. Sometimes she'd stop by a wall vent or lean near a door, like she was listening. Then stuff started moving around. My phone cable vanished and turned up by the bathroom sink, wet on one end. The remote batteries ended up in Carol's robe pocket. That sounds suspicious now, but there was regular nonsense too, like a towel in the freezer and her glasses in the laundry basket. So when other things didn't come back, I didn't have a clean way to make a case. A couple screws from the hall shelf, some black tape, one cheap screwdriver from the utility closet. Small stuff. The kind of stuff you sound ridiculous bringing up at dinner. I complained anyway. My mom said she doesn't know what she's doing. I hated that it worked on me. A couple nights I found Carol outside my door. Not knocking, just standing there. Once I had headphones on with nothing playing and watched her lean toward the door, like she was trying to hear me whisper. When I opened it, she said, "You called me." I hadn't said anything. After that, my dad put his toolbox up high. My mom locked the medicine and moved the knives into their closet. They were trying. They just kept aiming at the obvious stuff. The utility closet still had the old junk box behind the laundry bins, rusty screwdriver, broken pliers, wire scraps, old outlet screws, tape with gray edges. Nobody thought of that as tools. I asked my mom if we could put a latch on my door, just enough so I could sleep. She said if Carol got confused or if there was a fire, a locked door would make things worse. It sounded reasonable in that terrible family way where arguing makes you feel cruel. So I let it go. For the next few nights, I slept like garbage. I'd hear footsteps in the hall, then that soft dragging shuffle, then nothing. Sometimes I opened my door and Carol was near the wall beside my room. My mom would guide her back to bed and say she'd call the doctor after the weekend. Then I woke up to scraping beside my head, not from the hallway, right beside my bed. For a few seconds, my brain tried to make it normal. Mouse in the wall, charger slipping behind the nightstand. I had a box fan running, so maybe there had been small sounds before that. Then I opened my eyes and saw Aunt Carol crouched between my bed and the wall. The outlet cover was already off. She wasn't sticking the screwdriver into the holes, but she had dug up the drywall around the box and was working the screwdriver under the edge, like she was trying to pry it open. On the carpet were 2 screws, black tape, and a cut piece of my old phone cable. She whispered, "He's in there. He keeps calling." I only heard metal scraping and her breathing. I grabbed her wrist with one hand and reached for my phone with the other. Bad angle. Half on the mattress, nightstand blocking my knees, still trying not to hurt her. She slapped my hand hard enough that the phone slid off the nightstand and dropped behind the bed. Too far to reach, unless I let go. Then her hand went back toward the outlet. I yelled for my parents. Not words at first, just noise. Their bedroom was across the house, and for a few seconds, it was just me holding my aunt away from the wall while she kept saying she had to let me out. My dad got there first and flipped on the light. The cover was gone, the drywall was chewed up, and Carol had the screwdriver pressed to her chest. My mom held Carol by the shoulders. My dad pulled me away from the wall, saw the outlet was still live, and ran to the breaker panel. My room went dark, except for the hall light. Nobody made a speech after that. Dad drove Carol back to the hospital before sunrise, and Mom followed with paperwork. At home, there was the scraped wall, my phone under the bed, and the breaker left off for 2 days. Then pieces turned up. 1 screw in the carpet by my bed, a battery behind the hallway vent, a broken corner of an outlet cover behind my nightstand, a piece of my charging cable under the guest room mattress. Then my dad noticed 2 other outlet covers sitting crooked, like someone had already tried to work them loose. My mom asked me not to tell the rest of the family every detail. "Don't make her into a monster," she said. I didn't. I just moved my bed 6 inches off the wall and checked the outlet covers with my thumb before I went to sleep. This one hit in a different way because it starts with something sad and uncomfortable and then just turns into something genuinely terrifying. I mean, having someone confused in the house is already stressful, but waking up to them crouched beside your bed, taking apart a live outlet, is nightmare fuel. And what makes it worse is that the narrator isn't even angry in a simple way. They're scared, but they're also trying not to hurt her, trying not to be cruel, trying to understand. That is such an awful position to be in. The line about checking the outlet covers before sleep is the kind of trauma detail that sticks. Anyways, moving on. My grandmother died on a Tuesday morning, and by Friday night, I had one of her old blue folders spread across my kitchen table. It was not a secret folder. It was just paperwork. Boring funeral paperwork nobody wants, so it ends up with whoever still has enough energy to make phone calls. that person is usually me. My dad found it at grandma's house after the funeral home and insurance office asked for copies of forms he couldn't remember signing. The folder had bills, pharmacy receipts, care notes, old POA papers, and envelopes with grandma's shaky handwriting on them. Dad was in her kitchen with his coat still on, rubbing his eyes. He had to work at 6 and said he could not look at one more page with his mother's name on it. I had a scanner app and a kitchen table, so I took the folder home. My apartment was 15 minutes away, above a dentist's office. Mrs. Hanley lived across the hall and kind of through the wall. My Aunt Laura had been the main person with Grandma near the end. She took her to appointments, picked up prescriptions, stayed over, handled the bathroom stuff, and the things the rest of us sort of visited around. So when Laura was sharp that week, nobody treated it like a warning. Laura's first text came while I was sorting envelopes. "Don't send any of that to your dad tonight." I told her I was just making copies. She answered, "Don't show everyone. You don't know how she was at the end." I remember sighing because I thought, great, here we go. Another family thing. I told her dad only needed the insurance forms. She wrote back that people loved to judge when they weren't the ones sitting through the bad nights. That stung, but it did not sound dangerous. It sounded like grief and guilt and Laura being Laura. So I kept going. I scanned the funeral receipt, an insurance letter, some prescription printouts. I was not investigating anything. I was in sweatpants, drinking cold coffee, trying to put dates in order. A couple things did make me pause. One pharmacy receipt didn't seem to match the care notes. A refill looked too early, or maybe the note had been written late. I didn't know. People change doses. Pills get dropped. Then I found one yellow legal pad page with night notes on it. Times, water, bathroom, pain level. One line had been written over so hard the paper was shiny. I held it under the light, felt like an idiot, and put it with the pharmacy receipt and a few forms I wanted to ask Dad about. Not hidden, not marked. Just an Ask Dad Tomorrow pile. Laura called then. I didn't answer because I had papers all over the table and I was annoyed. Her next texts came one after another. Do not make copies. You don't understand what you're reading. I need that folder tonight. That was when my stomach tightened. More like, oh, she is going to make this my problem tonight. I typed that it was almost midnight, that I would bring everything to Dad in the morning, and that we could talk after people slept. She called 3 more times. I turned the phone face down on the table. I know, that was stupid, but Laura had always been dramatic when she felt cornered, and after the funeral, I thought this was another ugly family flare-up. I didn't think my aunt would come over paperwork. The apartment got quiet, except for the fridge and the pipes clicking in the wall. Across the hall, Mrs. Hanley shut her door with that little chain rattle. I checked the time, 11:46. A few minutes later, I heard something at my front door. At first, I thought someone had bumped the handle by mistake. Then I heard the lock turn. That froze me. Not a knock, not the downstairs buzzer, the lock. And then I remembered Laura had a spare key. Last winter, when I stayed with Dad during Grandma's first bad hospital week, Laura fed my cat. I never got the key back. It was one of those stupid normal family things you mean to fix and then don't. The door opened. Laura stepped in without saying my name. She had a coat over sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair pulled back badly. She didn't look drunk. She didn't look wild. She looked tired and hard. Her eyes went straight past me to the kitchen table. She only said, "Where are those pages?" For a second, I thought she meant the insurance pages. I told her everything was on the table. She walked into the kitchen like she had already decided where everything was. She didn't yell at first. She talked in this low voice, saying none of us had seen the last nights. Dad would not survive being made to think things he couldn't fix, and I had no right to judge her by scraps of paper. I said I wasn't judging anybody. I said I was making copies. Then she saw the little pile beside my phone. The softness went out of her face. She moved past the chair and stood with her back near the kitchen doorway. "Delete them," she said. I looked at my phone, then at her. The screen was dark, face down by the open folder. I told her I hadn't even sent anything. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded sheet from one of those cheap notepads. "Write it," she said. "Write that you misunderstood what you saw. Write that I didn't hide anything." That was when I understood she had come prepared. My hand went for the phone before I had any real plan. I tried to step around her and grab it at the same time. Laura caught my wrist and shoved her hip against the table, pinning me there like she was keeping a box from sliding off a counter. That almost made it worse. The chair hooked behind my calf, the folder slid sideways. Papers went everywhere, some under the fridge. A mug hit the floor and broke so loud, Mrs. Hanley thumped on the wall. Laura twisted my wrist toward the phone. The edge of the table was digging into my thigh. "I won't let you make me that person," she hissed. "I did not leave my mother to die." I shoved the chair back with my leg. It caught her ankle just enough. She stumbled on the papers and I pulled free. My phone slid off the table, hit the floor, and lit up with the scanner app still open. I didn't grab it. I ran. I got into the hallway barefoot, with my wrist burning and a piece of Grandma's paperwork stuck to my sock. Mrs. Hanley already had her door open on the chain. "Do I need to call 911?" she asked. I said yes. I think I said it twice. I didn't go back in. My apartment door was open and Laura was still inside. I could hear paper scraping, then one cabinet door bumping shut. Then she came out with her purse held against her side, walking fast, but not running. She didn't look at either of us. By the time the local police got there, they saw a mess, but not the kind that proved much. They asked whether Laura had permission to use the key, whether she hit me, what exact pages were gone. I could answer the first two. I could not answer the third cleanly. My wrist was bruised, but not broken. The phone still worked, but the last usable scans were the easy forms. I had not scanned the little pile yet. Later, Laura told Dad she had taken her own notes because I was misreading private caregiving stuff. Dad came over, angry at first, then scared when he saw the kitchen. He picked up one of the care logs from the floor, read maybe 3 lines, and stopped. I asked him what it meant. He said, "I can't do this tonight." Laura told relatives that without her, Grandma would not have made it to spring. The 2 night note pages and the pharmacy receipt were gone. What really gets me about this one is how quiet the thread is until it suddenly isn't. It's not some huge dramatic break-in at first. It's paperwork, grief, family tension, and somebody texting too much. And then the lock turns. That is such a chilling moment because it's family access being used in the worst possible way. Laura coming in prepared, trying to make the narrator write something. That's where it becomes so much darker than just panic. Whether she was guilty, scared, or both, she knew exactly what she wanted erased. And the fact that the missing pages are the one thing nobody can clearly explain makes it feel awful. At the time, I was renting half of an old duplex on the edge of a small town. My place had a 1-car driveway, a narrow garage, and a side door into the kitchen. It had a half basement, washer dryer, concrete sink, plastic tubs, an old metal shelf with paint cans and detergent on it, and the breaker box above the sink. The basement door opened inward over the stairs and stuck if you pulled it too fast. I used to leave my keys in a little bowl by the side door. Keys, wallet, mail, whatever receipt was in my pocket. That was just where everything landed when I came home from work. My cousin Ryan was 23. He had just been kicked out after months behind on rent, and his car was already at an impound lot across town. Expired tags, no insurance, parking tickets, tow fees. Basically, one of those problems where every day costs more money. My aunt called first. Then my mom texted. Then my uncle sent one of those family helps family messages. They said it would be a couple nights. I didn't want to be the guy who turned away family, so I said yes. I put an old mattress in the basement. I showed Ryan the bathroom upstairs, the laundry area, the side door, the garage light that came on with the motion sensor, and the breaker box, in case the dryer tripped something. Ryan looked awful when my aunt dropped him off. Not dangerous awful, just worn down. He had 2 trash bags and a backpack, and he thanked me too many times. That first night, while I was making a frozen pizza, I heard plastic rustling downstairs. I found him taping a black trash bag over the little basement window above the dryer, one of those ground-level windows with cloudy glass and weeds outside. He said the streetlight hit him right in the face. I said fine. Honestly, I didn't care. Then he asked if I could not leave the garage light on after 10. I told him it only came on when something moved in the driveway. Cat, wind, whatever. He stared at me and said, "Yeah, but if it does, can you shut it off?" At the time, I figured he was ashamed of sleeping in my basement and didn't want neighbors seeing him down there. I picked the easiest explanation. For the first few days, it stayed in that zone. Annoying, not scary. Ryan slept during the day. At night, I heard him come upstairs for water, stand by the fridge too long, and go back down. If headlights crossed the front windows, he stopped moving. If a truck slowed outside, he asked if someone had knocked. He kept asking about mail too. Tow notices. Anything from the impound lot. Once, he asked if anybody had come about the car, and when I asked who, he just said, "I don't know, them." Sitting in my kitchen at midnight, with him looking like he hadn't slept in a week, it felt more sad than anything. Then the requests got more specific. He asked me not to use the garage opener at night because the motor was too loud. Fine, since I parked in the driveway anyway. Then he asked if I could turn off the motion sensor completely. I told him I was not calling my landlord about my cousin and the security light. He didn't smile. A couple nights later, while I was watching TV, he came upstairs and asked why I left my keys by the side door. I said, because that's where I come in. He asked if that was safe. I thought he meant burglars, so I said nobody was breaking in. Our neighbor across the street, Mr. Hanley, watched the block like it was his job. Ryan said, "Still, people know where to look." The next morning, I moved the keys to the kitchen drawer with the batteries and takeout menus. I told myself it was for peace of mind, not because I was afraid of him. After that, he stopped talking so much about his car and started asking little things about mine. Spare key, gas, insurance. He asked it carefully, like he was trying to sound casual. I finally snapped when he asked if I would open the door if someone said they were from a towing company. I told him no towing company was coming to my house for his impounded car. If anyone did come, I would handle it. He looked hurt instead of angry, which made me feel like garbage. I'd get irritated, he'd look ashamed, and I'd back off. The next day, Ryan seemed normal again. He got up before noon, washed dishes, helped carry trash to the cans, and apologized without looking at me. He said he knew he had been acting weird, hadn't slept right in weeks, and just needed one more night to get his head straight. That threw me off more than if he had just kept getting worse. Maybe I had turned a broke, exhausted relative into some threat in my head, because I liked living alone. That afternoon, my aunt posted in the family chat that Ryan needed calm, not cops, and that nobody should make another problem for him. My mom texted me privately and said I was doing the right thing. So yeah, I gave him the extra night. That evening, I took the kitchen trash out and noticed a damp white receipt stuck to the inside of the bag. I peeled it loose and saw the impound lot name, the daily storage fee, and the total circled hard enough to tear the paper. Under it were ripped parking tickets and part of a registration sticker. I didn't see it as a warning. I saw debt, shame, somebody else's financial hole. Later that night, I was rinsing a mug in the kitchen when the garage light clicked on and filled the driveway white. That happens sometimes. Mr. Hanley's cat, a branch near the sensor, some car turning around at the end of the street. Normal stuff. Before I even put the mug down, Ryan was in the kitchen doorway barefoot, breathing hard. His face looked pale in the light coming through the side door window. He looked past me toward the drawer where I had moved my keys. I said, "It's just the light." He shook his head and kept saying the light showed where he was. I didn't calm him down. I just outlasted him. I stood between him and that drawer and kept my voice low, telling him nobody was outside and nobody knew he was there, except family. After a while, he went back downstairs, slow, like he was leaving something unfinished. I stayed on the couch for maybe an hour after that with my keys in my hoodie pocket. Ridiculous, but I did it. I must have fallen asleep around 2. A little after 3, the whole house clicked off. Not dimmed. Off. The furnace stopped first, or that's what woke me up. Then I noticed the refrigerator was quiet. The router lights were dead, and the garage light outside was gone too. No hum. No little green blink. No heat. My first thought was the wiring. I was irritated before I was scared, which feels insane now, but that house had done stupid things before. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and went to the basement door. It opened maybe a foot and stopped. Something was wedged on the other side. I pushed again and heard plastic buckle. Then the laundry basket scraped down one step. Lower down, something heavier groaned. When I forced the door farther, my phone light caught the old shelf pulled crooked across the lower stairs, with plastic tubs jammed behind it. "Ryan," I said, "move this crap." Nothing. I squeezed through enough to get one foot on the top step. That gave me a line down into the basement, and I saw him by the breaker box. The main breaker was off. The labels were ripped loose. The little toolbox from the laundry shelf was open beside him, and there was a strip of wire hanging near the panel. I just knew he was not fixing anything. He was pulling at things. I told him to get away from it. He turned his head, and the phone light hit his face. Sweaty, gray, eyes too wide. He said, "Give me your keys." First time he said it straight. I told him no, and started down one more step. He moved fast, grabbed the shelf, and yanked it tighter across the stairs. Paint cans rattled. One hit the concrete. He didn't even look. He said the garage gave them the driveway. The light showed exactly where he was. My car was clean, he said. My tags and insurance were good. Nobody was looking for my plate. I kept saying his name like that still meant anything. Then he started climbing over the mess toward the stairs. One hand on the shelf, one reaching through the gap. "Keys," he said again. I stopped thinking about my aunt's text. The door was half shut behind me, and the basket had my foot pinned weird against the step. Ryan shoved the shelf again, and the whole pile shifted. One plastic tub split and old extension cord spilled out. A paint can rolled under his foot. Then the detergent jug from the top shelf tipped over and burst on the stairs. It was stupid. I did not beat him. I did not have some brave plan. He had built the barricade wrong because he was panicking, and it failed in a stupid way. His foot hit the detergent, and he went down hard on one knee. The shelf twisted away from the bottom step. I ripped my foot loose and shoved myself up through the gap. He grabbed my hoodie, got fabric, then lost it. I slammed the basement door hard enough to crack the frame. There was no lock. I just held it shut with both hands while he hit the other side and yelled for the keys. I still had them in my pocket. I remember feeling the metal through the hoodie and thinking, do not drop them. When the hitting paused, I ran. I went out the side door barefoot to Mr. Hanley's house. His porch light came on before I even reached the steps. He opened the door with a baseball bat in his hand, saw my face, and pulled me inside. Police came first, then an ambulance. They brought Ryan out through the side door with his hands cuffed in front. He was crying by then and asking them not to turn the lights on. My family split over it. Some said I was lucky. My aunt said I called strangers on him during the worst night of his life. The electrician came the next afternoon. He said Ryan had not done anything clever, just dangerous. The loose wire tied into the garage light circuit, and if somebody had started flipping breakers without checking, the house could have burned. Ryan left almost nothing behind. The impound receipt, still damp and folded small. A key fob that was not mine and did not match any car in the family. The torn piece of registration sticker was stuck to the inside of his backpack. I still did not know who he thought was looking for him, or if anybody was. I changed the locks, and now my keys stay in the kitchen drawer, and I still flinch when the garage light clicks on at night. This one is scary because Ryan doesn't come in acting like a monster. He comes in desperate, ashamed, paranoid, and that makes it easier for everyone to explain things away. And then suddenly the power is off, the basement stairs are blocked, and he's by the breaker box asking for the keys. That shift is horrible. The family pressure in this story is also maddening because the narrator keeps being pushed to absorb danger just so nobody has to admit how bad Ryan is getting. And honestly, the garage light detail is so unsettling. By the end, even a normal motion light feels like a warning. That ending is just so frustrating because the danger was obvious to everyone, but the family still couldn't bring themselves to name it. And honestly, that's what makes it linger. Not just Ray at the window, but the fact that the narrator left with that camper gone, the window boarded up, and their parents still trying to soften what happened. I really hope they kept some distance after that. But the next story takes that same uncomfortable family pressure and brings it inside the bedroom.